Today I speak with Mark Schneider, CEO of Nestlé since 2017. Under his leadership, Nestlé transformed enormously in the last couple of years. And for the coming years, he has ambitious goals on sustainability, digital and innovation. I speak with him about his journey, ambitions and the leadership needed to get there. Welcome, Mark. So nice you can join us for our CEO stories.
Thanks for having me. Delighted.
Thank you. Well, let's start speaking about a topic close to heart, which is sustainability. You are a strong advocate for businesses as a force for good, and that companies should create value both for shareholders as well as society. Now, my first question is about your Creating Shared Values program. How does it contribute to the Paris Agreement? Could you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. And let me point out that creating shared value is a concept that Nestlé helped to pioneer. We were working very closely with Harvard Business School and some researchers at that place at the time on this concept to bring it to life. And it is about our broader relationship to society around us. And as you said, it's about creating value not only for shareholders, but also for society at large as we go about our business. And the link now, of course, to the Paris Agreement is that one of the challenges to society these days is greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. And hence, we have to all work really hard to address that. I think it's an area where early on we expressed our support for the Paris Agreement. Even at the times when politically the winds were blowing elsewhere, we stayed into that movement. In fact, we were part of a movement in the US saying we're still in at the time when the government was out. And we gave our pledge in 2019 towards the 1.5 degree goal. And then as part of that, we published our roadmap late last year. The rules say that within 2 years, you have to publish a detailed roadmap, how you intend to get there. This is important these days because on a 30-year undertaking, people want to see specifics. They want to see milestones and things that specifically you do. And this is essentially what we published. I think in our industry, food and beverage, it's seen as one of the benchmarks now.
You published very concrete goals, also on the short term, ambitious goals.
Yes, and so everyone, of course, that's engaged in addressing climate change points out the importance of the next decade. So obviously, at some point, you want to arrive at carbon neutrality, but making a dent in the curve for the next decade, I think that is a major issue. And hence, to me, the milestones that apply to the first decade are really the most important ones.
And could you give specific examples of what you're doing?
So the carbon roadmap is one. I think plastics waste reduction and packaging waste reduction is another key theme. So this is one where you have to recognize that plastic was originally adopted 50, 60 years ago as a packaging material of choice because it really offered unparalleled advantages when it comes to shelf life and food safety. And I think only over time did society understand that, of course, there are some costs here when it comes to littering and the slow degradation of the product and the fact it's accumulating on beaches and rivers and so forth. And so here we have a collective challenge that we're all facing. Our name is on the packaging. So it's not only about the material, it's also about how consumers perceive Nestlé and think about Nestlé.
Yeah.
And so we're tackling this from all ends. We've committed to make our packaging recyclable or reusable by 2025 in order to be sure that we are the masters of our own fate and we're not just a passenger to the packaging industry. We established our own Institute of Packaging Sciences where we pilot many of these solutions. We also test new solutions that are being brought to us. So we wanted to be sure that we do have our own initiatives in that space.
Yes, and I think you also have activities in the field of transparency of the food chain.
Yeah, so clearly today's consumer doesn't just want to see the finished product, they also want to understand what are your business practices as you create that product. And then, of course, we have a number of environmental issues upstream. Think about deforestation that's going on in some countries related to some of the key agricultural commodities that we purchase. Of course, we want to be sure that our supply chain is deforestation free. We're 90% of the way there, so it's now about the last 10%. And this is where we pioneered in food and beverage satellite tracking as one additional tool to use technology to increase transparency and give us some checks and balances. So there's lots of ways in which technology can help us show the upstream part of our business and make it credible to our consumers.
Yes. Yes, on that topic of technology and digital and data, of course, innovation has already been at the heart of Nestlé in the last 150 years. Yeah. And besides product innovation, you made digital a top priority. And of course, also digital has been a very important part of your marketing activities already for years with the Personalization at Scale program. Could you share some of that journey and also some results?
Yeah, let me start with a very high level thought. Many of us have been using email and the internet now for a quarter of a century. And so it may feel to us that we're already in the digital world. But when it comes to true digital opportunities, I think that the best days are still to come. And the full digital build out of our society, of our company, our supply chain, that's still something that we're all facing. So I think the best days are ahead, clearly. And it shouldn't surprise you. If you think that's slow, well, think about the automobile. The automobile was invented in the 1890s. And it was not till like the 1950s and 60s that our lives truly were centered around this. And so you had inner cities that facilitated commuting. You had suburban shopping malls, office complexes, and so forth. You had a highway system that linked cities. And so it shouldn't surprise us that after some early adoption, it does take a while till that full build out is there. And in food and beverage, clearly COVID, as sad as it is, I think was one of these accelerators. Food and beverage was a category that was among the slower adopters of a digital e-commerce kind of approach. It has now received a tremendous shot in the arm and boost, and we don't see it sliding back. In fact, we see it continue from here because many people who've seen the convenience and the possibilities under the pressure of the pandemic are probably now staying with this way of doing their business even after the pandemic. Now, when it comes specifically to personalization at scale, when you look back at marketing research, I think this was the old marketeer stream going back to the 1970s and 80s, that you have a segment of one approach in your communication, but then also in some cases in the finished product. And at the time, it sounded like an academic pipe dream, but I think now what's happening is with digital, personalization at scale becomes affordable and possible. And so we're seeing it in the communication where, of course, more and more of our communication is targeted specific to a consumer. And you're also seeing it in some business models where people purchase highly personalized products. A good example is our investment in Tails.com, which is a bespoke pet food maker based in the UK. So here you enter the specifics of your pet, and then out of 15 different ingredients, we produce the pet food that's right for your dog. And it comes as part of a subscription shipped to your house, even with the name of the pet on it, so that if you have several pets, you can keep the bags apart. So it just shows you how finally, at a very affordable cost, these personalization strategies are here and around us.
You actually talk about the category that is a front runner in digital, which is pet food. And of course, you've acquired Tails.com, but I think you're busy there with a broader movement to go from pet food to pet care. Can you explain your activities in this field?
You're absolutely right. And I think pet food is one of these signature categories where you see the opportunities that come from ecosystem building. And for a consumer, it is not only about purchasing the pet food to feed the pet. It's about the total pet ownership situation. So from the moment you think about adopting a pet to selecting one, to then maybe addressing health issues that a pet has. Not each and every minor little issue will require a full trip to the vets, which will come at significant time and cost and inconvenience, but rather many issues can be solved with an expert online. And so we give very personalized service there. In exchange for that, we're getting data about that specific pet and the owners, so we can tailor our approach much more personally. Then there is pet health issues, and so we're also investors in a chain of pet care clinics, see a significant opportunity there. And so it's about the total ownership journey that we're seeing here. And I think pet care is a good overall expression to describe that broader view that we have on the opportunity.
Yeah. And is that part of what you said, the best is yet to come with digital? How would you describe this? What in your vision is that best?
Yeah, so we have not given a specific target percentage for e-commerce other than saying, go up, do more than what you're doing. And this is one where rather than picking a number, you have to simply explore the limits. And for the moment, it still keeps going up. And I think it will do so for quite a while. And we're certainly very invested in doing that. The full digital build-out is really that situation where, whether it's with our company or elsewhere, you really have that uninterrupted chain and some of the efficiency and information advantages at your fingertips that come from that. And again, to me, this is easily another 5, 10, 15-year endeavor to make that happen.
And if you would specify this uninterrupted journey, do you mean also with partners, for the consumer? How would you, which parties would be involved in such an uninterrupted journey?
To me, one of the big differences between the old pre-digital world and the new digital world is that you can reconfigure and rewire a relationship in literally no time at all. And the old pre-digital thinking was very much hardwired, as I would call it. And so establishing a channel, for example, would take you years and years and years of building the relationship and establishing everything. And then, of course, once you have established it, you don't want to change it. Digital business relationships can be rewired very quickly and constructed around changing needs. And it's that flexibility that I think is really important. And that's very much in tune with today's consumer, because today's consumer has little patience for what is your favorite channel. Today's consumer just thinks about a need state and then the least difficult option to fill that need. So practical example, Saturday night, 6 p.m., you are expecting guests for dinner and you find out you don't have any salty snacks. So at that moment, the consumer doesn't think about, channels. They think about what is my easiest and cheapest way to get what I need in a few minutes' time. And then they start to organize their thought pattern around this. And I think the more easily and the more frictionless you have an opportunity to make product available, the more share of mind and market share eventually you will get. And in order to make that happen, it is important, especially as boundaries between traditional channels are blurring, to be able to reconfigure your business system really fast. And digital allows you to do that.
So what you're saying is whether it's Nestlé's direct channels or partner channels or anything based on the consumer needs, you want to provide as many channels as necessary for the frictionless journey of this consumer.
Yeah. And a good example in food and beverage is the traditional, what we call out of home. So when you eat at a restaurant, at a cafeteria, or in an airplane or hotel, obviously a very important channel and a strongly growing channel until COVID hit. What you see now with COVID is something that was already underway before, and that is the blurring of these channels. So when you order in a meal at home, coming from a restaurant or a dark kitchen, you are actually consuming in-home, either because of COVID or because of sheer convenience, but you are sourcing from a traditional out-of-home channel. And it's one of these good examples how the traditional channel definitions are not serving us that well anymore. It's really all about how to make it the easiest for the consumer to get what they want. And convenience, as you see from this ordering in, is a big part of the equation.
If you also think about your B2B customers, are you also busy already, let's say, digitizing their channels?
Whether it's retail or whether it's these traditional out-of-home business partners, I think they're all faced with the same trends, and that is this consumer that sort of moves seamlessly between different consumption opportunities. And of course, they're all digitizing their own businesses and trying to make them more efficient and linking up them in their situation, us as a supplier, in a very efficient way, I think is ever more important. With retailers in particular, it's important to see them not only as the shelf, where consumers come and pick something either virtually or physically, but also to see them as what they are, and that is tremendous data aggregators. And I think the best retailers a long time ago began to realize that the data that they accumulate is worth its weight in gold. It's really important to understand shopping behavior and velocities and consumer preference. And from our point of view, that data is also getting ever more important because I think in fast-moving consumer goods, you're shifting away from the kind of look-forward market research to what I call real-time, real data kind of models where you experiment, you put something on a shelf, whether it's virtual or physical. You see what a real consumer with real money is doing rather than doing desk research. And then you basically adjust on the fly from there to see that you arrive at the best solution. So that's why, for example, we love pop-up stores. But of course, pop-up stores are very limited, have a limited catchment area only. Whereas if you partner with a retailer and do a broader test launch and get some of the data to make your decisions based on that data, that to me is a good relationship that works for both sides.
Yeah. In the last 4 years, you've shown tremendous leadership in the transformation of Nestlé. What type of leadership is needed for the sustainable digital transformation of the core in the coming years?
This is where you can pull it all together, and that is in a world where fast-paced trial and error is becoming ever more important and where consumers' loyalty to a given product or solution is getting ever shorter, and where it's also easier to try and set up a new business model digitally, as we just discussed. I think this whole trial and error mindset then in the culture of the company is gaining tremendous importance. And so it's no longer about the perfect solution, never being wrong, but rather it's about, getting it 80% right, but really fast. And occasionally also getting it wrong and then quickly learning from that. It's the whole failing fast kind of buzzword. But then really drawing your conclusions from that and getting it pretty darn right the next time. And so that whole mindset where something that fails is not like this huge blemish on your career or resume, but rather you're doing the company a favor doing that. And so let's use the insights and let's get it better the next time around. That whole mindset, I think, is one, no matter whether we're talking Nestlé or elsewhere, I think this is one of those changes that we're all growing into.
I'm very happy that you say that because I believe that is really necessary everywhere. And in terms of Nestlé, what part of the culture does already contribute to this, and where do you think change is necessary?
Look, we do have, when it comes to food and beverage, and given how sensitive this category is, after all, this is something you ingest, and so you want to be sure it's top-notch quality. Yeah. So we do have a very much safety and quality-driven mindset, and I think that continues to be important. And so whenever I talk to people about taking risks, I make it clear that the food safety side of it is not up for negotiation. I mean, this is where we need to be absolutely pristine. But then on whether the box is blue or orange and the logo is in the top left-hand corner or top right-hand corner, I mean, all of these things, I think you can much more than before adjust on the fly and really learn from your mistakes and, try to basically display very playful attitude to these situations and one that's open to experimentation. And one of the best ways as a leader to kind of drive that home is to be very open about the mistakes that I do every day, because there's a good share of mistakes I do every day, and it's good to open up about that. And by doing so, you also encourage people to do the same. And obviously, what I keep telling people is, don't mind making the mistake. Watch what I call from baseball the batting average. So make sure that over time you're not positive, but it's really about that. It's about accepting mistakes about you easily, and then really trying harder next time around to do better.
And you are, of course, the first external CEO for Nestlé since I think almost a century. Is this mindset also what you contribute? So what do you think you bring in that sense?
I think a lot of the changes I described were well underway in the company when I joined, and I applaud Nestlé for being an organization that over the years has always adjusted very well to changes in the environment. And even for any given moment in time, the company has tremendous flexibility, which is needed to be able to do business in 187 markets around the world. So I think a lot of that has always been there and allowed us to survive and prosper for 155 years. What happened mid-decade is that the pace of change in our environment quickened quite a bit. And we saw in the entire industry an onslaught of small to mid-sized, very focused companies, startup businesses, digital businesses. The barriers to entry were coming down as a result of digital. And it was these smaller companies that collectively were taking share from some of the largest players, including us. And so this is where I think we had to step it up one notch when it comes to that pace of change. And it was very rewarding to see how the organization responded to that. And I'd be the first one to say it's not about the leader, it's actually about the environment, because essentially people want to win. And when they see that it takes an additional gear to actually win, then they shift it up and they got it done.
Yes, I agree. And I think that's a great way to end our interview. So thank you so much, Mark, for your time and your inspirational answers. And good luck with the fast-paced future.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure to have a conversation. And I think we touched upon a few really important core issues from sustainability to digital as the company faces the future and tries to make the best of it.
Absolutely. Thank you.